These deserted Norfolk airfields now stand silent, guardians of the memories of the past, when in the 40s they were the bases of a unique and brave group of men and women, the 2nd Air Division of the United States Army Air Force. If only these little fields of America could speak, they'd tell you tales that would not seem possible today. For these airfields are indeed a vital part of our history, and proof that the freedom we enjoy today was bought for us by that generation. Though these airfields are silent and deserted now, it was very different in 1942, when in a hectic rush of construction, the bases of the 2nd Air Division were built all over East Anglia. The 2nd Air Division, under the command of Major General James P. Hodges, was equipped with a 4-engine B24 Liberator bomber, with a crew of 9 or 10, and capable of carrying a large bomb load over a long range at high altitude. The Liberators were marked with the distinctive colored group fin markings and the unique paintings on the nose. Yes, Fighting Sam had arrived. With the aircraft came the buildings, such as this typical control turret seething, and also the support teams, the headquarters staff, the crew chiefs, the ground crews, and at its maximum, the division strength was 9,000 officers and 44,000 enlisted personnel, covering 14 bombardment groups and 5 fighter groups. Today, Seething, once the home of the 448th Bomb Group, is quiet, except for the light aircraft, the Cessnas and the Pipers of the Waveney Flying Group, who still fly from this historic field in Norfolk. But once a year, the sound of 4-engine aircraft is heard again at the group's annual flying display, and the pilots still use the same windsock. Bungay, just down the road from Seething, and the base of the 446th, lies peaceful and quiet, but crop-spraying aircraft still keep alive the sound of aeroplanes from this famous field. Further south lies Halesworth, the home of the 489th Bomb Group, deserted now except for the turkey sheds of Bernard Matthews, and the unique memorial to those crews of the group who did not return. Hardwick, once alive with the 93rd Bomb Group, is now peaceful, with the spring corn growing between the runways. But tucked away in one corner are aircraft that still fly and keep alive the memories of this field. But so far, these are all memories. So let's now go back and see what it was really like in 1943, when the 2nd Air Division flew and fought for freedom beside us in East Anglia.
Here's Captain Glenn Miller. Thank you, Lieutenant Don Briggs, and hello, everybody. Coming up first is the band playing Sergeant Jerry Gray's tribute to the lads who pilot one of America's newest institutions, Jeep Jockey Jump.
Most days, the Norfolk countryside shook to the roar of engines as up to 1,000 B-24 Liberator bombers trundled down the taxiways to the active runway en route for Germany.
Intercoolers off, mixture order, which flaps green light shown, fuel check, flaps 1/3 down, checks ready for takeoff.
And so they were airborne, with the heavily laden B-24s struggling to gain height at their assembly points over the Norfolk coast. The gaily painted lee ships firing flares, the squadrons formed up, then into groups and finally into wings, before setting course for the target. And for us remaining on the ground in Norfolk, this indeed was a memory we will never forget. This is Shipton, 1943. And now today the field is still busy, not with bombers, but as an industrial estate. However, the mud and the hangars are still the same. In one part of the airfield is Arrow Air Services, who operate from Shipton, flying and rebuilding vintage aircraft. And instead of the roar of the Pratt & Whitney, we have the purring of the Lycoming. But it's still flying, and that's what surely counts. In the early light of a Norfolk dawn and above cloud, the Liberators assemble over Cromer and then set course for the long haul into Germany against the flak and the fighters. And it's got all the signs of being a long, hard day before they return home once more to their East Anglian bases. At 26,000 feet, the sky turns a dark blue above us. We breathe sickly oxygen, and the temperature drops to a minus 48 degrees centigrade. So we have to fight the intense cold as well as the enemy. operational height now, the massive formation of Liberators crosses the enemy coast, and the gunners keep their eyes peeled for the enemy fighters. The Messerschmitt 109s and 190s that must surely come before too long. Chippenham and the home of the 445th Bomb Group. The mud and the windsock haven't changed much, but nowadays the only aircraft using the runways are those of the Norfolk Gliding Club. But the memories are still there. You've only got to stand in the middle of the runway to understand. Not far away is Old Buckenham, once the base of the 453rd, and now used by crop spraying aircraft. But with many of the buildings still standing, it's easy to sense those American voices and the roar of the Liberators. Contrails stream out from behind the bombers, drawing a telltale banner across the sky to warn the enemy of the approaching formation. The visibility is too clear. The fighters must see us shortly. And here they come, 109s and our 5 o'clock, hammering into the formation. I got two 109s coming in at 5 o'clock. One down and another 40 to go. After the fighters, it's now the turn of the flak to pound the formation. With the burst so thick you'd feel you could almost walk across that carpet in the sky. And we haven't even reached the target. This is certainly going to be a tough mission today. Ethel and the 389th. Instead of bombers, we now have high-speed cars, as this is the home of the famous Lotus. And once where Liberators rumble down the taxiways, racing cars are restricted to 50 miles an hour. This is Ketteringham Hall, the headquarters of the 2nd Air Division, where all the missions were planned. And now it is the base of Lotus Research and Development. Bombs away at last, and the Liberators commence a turn to port away from the target in the heavy flak. The strike has been successful, and there was one almighty explosion on the ground that was seen for miles. Not every mission was high level, and the 2nd Air Division did some low-level strikes. And the Liberators also dropped supplies to the Allied airborne forces at Nijmegen. As on all missions, the division had losses, and on this low-level operation, 2 Liberators are shot down in quick succession. Life was not easy or long in the 40s. This is North Pickenham, once the proud home of the 492nd Bomb Group, and now the base for Crane Fruhaaf, as well as a communications station. But sadly, no aircraft fly from this field today. Wendling, another historic airfield that was the base of the 392nd. No aircraft fly from here today, only turkeys from the Bernard Matthews farms. And the domestic sites are deserted, and the bomb dumps remain quiet in the Norfolk sunshine. Attlebridge, the home of the 466th Bomb Group, and now the base for more squadrons of turkeys. Where once the Liberators proudly stood at their dispersals, are now houses, but the concrete and the memories remain. Also in Attlebridge is the home of Bernard Matthews. Now the the formations fight their way slowly home, constantly harassed by fighters and flak. And the North Sea is certainly no place to be on two engines with your hydraulics shot away. For the crews that made it safely back, the patchwork fields of Norfolk are indeed a welcome sight. Soon the sky over the 2nd Air Division bases is filled with the returning Liberators. And once again, Norfolk listens to the joyful roar of their engines. Our friends and allies are back home once more. The village sign, the cat on the barrel at Old Catton, must surely be remembered by the 458th Bomb Group at Horsham St. Faith's, which is now Norwich Airport. Here on the airport itself, the memories are revived by the Liberator Road. Of all the 2nd Air Division bases, Horsham St. Faith's is still the most intact, and as well as a busy regional airport, with links to Europe and the rest of the United Kingdom, it has a large industrial estate. Now the Liberators start to land back at their bases, with the watching ground crews anxiously counting them in and looking for the telltale flares indicating wounded on board or battle damage. Gee, it's good to see them home again. For some, however, their problems are not over yet, and the landings are difficult. And here is the first one, a Liberator with the starboard wheel shot away. The ground crew survey the awesome damage to this Liberator, and the injured crew are given first aid beside the aircraft while waiting for the station ambulance. This, indeed, is the price of our freedom. Not all the homecomings were in fine weather, and they did not have the modern radar. The only aids were flares fired to mark the runway threshold. And after 7 hours of combat flying, this was one hell of a way to make an approach. Still, they come home out of the bad weather, and yet another has a nose-wheel collapse. Starboard tire flat on the starboard outer feathered, and yet still they got them back. Another Liberator lands with a shot-up starboard wheel, careers off the runway and skids to a halt on the grass. And yet the crew survive. At times with major emergencies such as wounded on board, you just had to get down, and one on the runway and one veering onto the grass. But both the crews were saved. But for some of the Liberators, they would not fly again. Still they come home, tired and weary with injured on board. But there's always another day tomorrow with yet another mission to fly. The mission completed, the B24s now taxi back to the waiting ground crew at their dispersals.
Wait till I got the goddamn ring. Now I don't want them anymore. They taught me how to fly, but they sent me off to die. Well, I had had a belly full of war. You can save those bloody zeros for the other goddamn heroes. The string with flying crosses do not compensate for losses. A buster. I wanted wings till I got the goddamn thing. Now I don't want them anymore. Oh, I must See them marching in formation, see them lining up in grade. Every day a new vacation, that's the ground crew on parade. Who inspects the plane each morning, fills the empty tanks at night, checks the engines while he's yawning, polishes the landing light, watches as the engines rev up, hears the motors purr with pride, worries cause he can't remember, did he leave his tools inside? See them marching in formation, see them lining up in grade, every day a new vacation, that's the ground crew on parade.
And now to Rackheath and the Golden Gates, the home of the 467th Bomb Group. All is peaceful at Rackheath Hall. The domestic site remains quiet, with its memories and voices of long ago. And the airfield itself is an industrial estate where the tower and the hangars still remain. The roar of the Liberators has gone. The last mission fades on the operations board. So how are we to maintain our trust with those who did not return? The answer is in the unique 2nd Air Division Association and their wonderful memorial room in the Central Library. Those of us who are left will always remember them. From the past to the present and the future. And we return to Norwich, a cathedral city which has changed little over the years, and which is deeply proud of its close association with the 2nd Air Division, and the trustee of its unique living memorial room. The 2nd Air Division was based in East Anglia from November 1942 to April 1945. It flew 95,948 sorties on 493 operational missions. A total of 199,883 tons of bombs were dropped on the enemy, and 1,079 enemy fighters were destroyed. But there was a cost. 1,458 bombers failed to return, and 6,032 members of the division gave their lives that we could be free. This is the Norwich remembered by the 2nd Air Division in those dark days of the 1940s, and a city and county today who will always remember them with gratitude and affection. Come now to the Central Library in Norwich and look at this unique living memorial given by the 2nd Air Division perhaps best described by the words of General Kepner when making the presentation. This memorial, he said, must be a spiritually living thing, the deep and sacred feeling giving birth to this memorial, that our comrade spirit of youth, hope and desire for a world of decency, freedom and peace must live on, must imbue this memorial with that same sacred spirit dedicated to oncoming generations whose way of life they died to protect. This memorial must be a haven wherein the flame of their principles will burn brightly and eternally, wherein the bewildered, stumbling footsteps of succeeding generations can be unerringly placed on the right paths. And so the 2nd Air Division Association and the Norwich governors of their Memorial Trust have lived up to that request of General Kepner. The library is indeed a haven of peace, with its wide range of books donated by the members of the association, covering all sides and facets of the American way of life. There is the beautiful and moving Freedom Shrine and the constantly turning Roll of Honor. And on the wall are the group memorials and colored tail fins, each with its airfield name and the squadron numbers. Hethel and the 389th, Tipnam and the 445th, Old Buckenham and the 453rd, Shipton and the 44th, Wendling and the 392nd, North Pickenham and the 492nd, Hardwick and the 93rd, Bungay and the 446th, Seeding and the 448th, Halesworth and the 489th, Metfield and the 491st, Horsham St. Fays and the 458th, Attlebridge and the 466th, and Rackheath and the 467th. These are the groups of the 2nd Air Division. Inside the library, the striking wall mural reminds you of the liberators. And outside in the courtyard, the fountain contains stones from every part of the United States of America, while the flags bear witness to our close ties and friendship that will never be broken. Moving outside the library, the joyous peals from the bells of St. Peter Mancroft ring out on the occasion of the association's 36th annual convention, which was held in Norwich. Inside a packed church, we listen to a moving sermon by the Lord Bishop of Norwich, and then the new standards for the memorial room are dedicated. And outside the church, the airmen of today fly past to salute the 2nd Air Division Association. This, then, is the past, the present, and the future of the 2nd Air Division and their association. They came to us as friends, they stayed as friends, and they remained friends. and we will always remember them with pride and affection.